morning, Donald. Can you hear me?
Uh, Yeah, I can hear you. How you doing?
I am blessed. How are you?
Doing well. Do you want to make this a video call? Or,
Yes, please turn the video on as well. That'd be awesome.
give me a second. I have my monitors all hooked up.
Okay.
How was your holiday season?
It's been good. Really good. I actually didn't want to get back to work, but that's a common story, I think.
Right.
And it's not because I didn't want to be productive. I was being super productive away from the office, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Let's see. You see me now?
There he is.
All right. Let me get my. You know what? Yeah, we'll be fine.
Yeah, you look fine. The lighting's fairly good. Probably use a little more on your face. On your left side, it's a little shadowed, but
Yeah, I got a lamp here.
yeah, yeah, that's where you want to be.
Okay.
You want the window natural light. It looks like you have coming in there.
Right, right.
That's good. Yeah, you look good.
My view, by the
All right, show off.
way.
Where are you out of again?
I'm in Chicago.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so you guys are freezing up there, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Brutal.
What's the weather there in Florida?
Well, 2 days ago it was 79 and blue skies, right? That's why we live here. And then overnight it went to 47.
Wow.
Yeah, and now it's at like 45 with that cold wind chill that's crossing the country right now. So,
Wow.
hence, I'm wearing a sweater and a collared shirt, looking all preppy.
You're layering.
I'm layering. You got it, man. It's like it's when the temperature drops that significant overnight, like our blood is thinned out, right? So
Right, right,
everyone's just like acting like little kids running around, like freezing and
right,
stuff like that. We're being
right.
a bunch of wusses. That's all.
Yeah, it hit. I think yesterday I took a picture in my car while driving. It was -6.
Yeah, and that's why I don't live in Chicago anymore.
Yeah.
Chicago is fun, but not for that. All right, I am ready when you are.
Well, let me just ask a few questions.
Yeah, sure.
One, I'll have the landing page up for you today. I'm just pretty much going to copy and paste a different page and like tweak it for your company.
Okay, got it. So all I need to know is what the link is called so we could say it to listeners where to send them. So we going with the
Oh, okay.
vickyvirtual.com/first 100K.
All right, let me write that down. But yeah.
Yeah, this way we know where to point them.
Hmm.
And the benefit of them going to this specific link rather than just straight to your site is that they'll get a discount to our first 100K listeners, special discount.
Yeah, let's do I'll do 10% off for 6 months.
Yeah, that's fine. It's got to work for you as well.
Right, and then we'll also waive the sign up fee,
Okay.
which is normally $50.
Got it. Or you could just waive the sign-up fee and don't do the other thing, the 10%. You want to
Uh,
just do that? Is that better for you?
it doesn't matter much to me. It's if we land one more person because of the 10%, then it's worth it.
Got it. Okay. So let me just jot that down for me. Oh, yeah. So waive, what do you call a startup fee or sign-up fee or
Yeah, sign up fee.
sign-up fee?
Normally $50.
Got it. And then 10% off for 6 months.
Now, also, if Would it be okay for me to mention, not like talk about it, but just in conversation, mention Kara virtual assistants?
What is it called?
Kara virtual assistants, which is I'm
Who
not
is
sure if
that
I
to?
told you about it. What'd you say?
Who is that to you? Who are they to you in
So,
relation?
so Vicky Virtual is U.S. based, a glorified fancy answering service, basically, right?
Got it.
Take calls, incoming, outgoing,
Hmm.
chat, messages. Uh, Kara Virtual is Philippines based and they're actual VAs, so they do everything.
Okay, gotcha. So, or do you own both of them?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's why I'm like, is that your competitor? Who is that? I don't know. So is the Vera virtual, is that for international clients and Vicky virtuals for US only?
They're both U.S. clients.
Both
Um,
US clients. Okay.
yeah, so the client demographic is essentially the same. It's just the way they're utilized is a little bit different, right?
What's the benefit? Why did you start Vera if you have Vicky? That's I'm not clear on
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So Vicky again is we take calls, we make calls, we take messages and such. We don't do things like email correspondence, um, you know, back end work, social media post, blog post, that type of stuff. Whereas Care is more comprehensive offer. We do anything that isn't like highly technical.
Oh,
So
okay. So that's more of just
like a personal
more of
assistant.
a virtual assistant.
Yeah, yeah,
All right. So Vicky Virtual is virtual receptionist, and then Vera is VA or virtual assistant
right.
for other
And
type of.
and it's Cara, Cara.
Oh, got it. Yeah, I would recommend. Yeah, if you want to bring that up, bring it up for sure.
Okay.
And just so you know, I have listeners to this show in 13 countries.
Oh
So,
wow.
um, but I guess you only service. So let's be clear that you only service U.S. clients.
Well, Cara actually, we do have clients across the world.
Okay, so then that's see we got to it. Bring up Kara for that. For any of you international listeners, if you're outside the United States, I have this other brand called Kara, and here's what we do with it.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now it's clear. Okay, cool.
And one last question before we start, and I apologize. Um, because when this is posted, will it be posted audio and video?
Separate. So it's two separate files. So for right now, it will be posted for audio only on the
Hmm.
on iTunes, and then the video I haven't gone live with any of them yet. But I'm
Okay.
gonna build up a YouTube channel, and I have all this content now, video content that I could just repurpose. And I'm
Okay.
like, if I'm doing the audio, I might as well record the video for the future because I'll probably be like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I did that.
Right. Yeah. The reason I ask is because sometimes I might stumble through making a point, and I know in audio it gets corrected, and video got to be more on point.
Yeah, listen, I'm really good at what I do, so you and I will get there. If you're stumbling or whatever, I'm right there to back you up. Okay?
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, no worries. Just be at peace and let your true who you are come through. Because as I said to my previous guest an hour ago, he's a CPA and he was literally freaking out. And he was right here in my co-working space, and I was like, dude, it's okay, like totally fine. Like, just be real, just be raw. And he did such a great job. Like, it was all in his head, right?
Hmm.
All this BS. And he really connected with the audience. And I said, listen, some of you send this out to your clients. Let them listen to your show. And here's why. You got real and just so human. Like he shared like he listens to hip hop when he's doing their tax returns just to help them
Huh.
focus. That's something they don't know about him. I was like, your clients now are going to know, like, and trust you even more.
Right.
And that's
Right.
just going to do better for your business. So that's what I would say. The way to add the most value to our listeners, um, Donald, is for you to be real, to be raw, to be transparent, to show your humanness, that you don't have it all figured out, that you have self doubt, you have fear just like anyone else. And
Right.
who you're speaking to today is the 90% of entrepreneurs who are struggling to make their first $100,000, but are acting and pretending like they're doing better than they are. But meanwhile, they're not, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
They show the highlights of their life on Facebook and social media and everything, but meanwhile, they're going home struggling, sad, depressed, lonely, all that stuff. So that's who
Right.
we're speaking to. And, share some of the things that happen, right? Like the voices that you still have in your head, like, I'm not good enough. It's not going to work. I'm going to fail. I'm a loser, all that stuff. Because then they connect and they go, wow, this guy, Donald, he's really successful. He has the same struggles I have. Okay,
Right.
I can do this too. Are you clear on that?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely. That's a great premise.
Yeah, so that's the conversation we're having. And you and I are a team right now, and we're standing for one listener having a transformation in their life through this show. You got that?
All right. Yeah.
And then we're successful, baby. All right, here we go. First, really quick housekeeping. Donald, to clarify, you grant me, Joseph Warren, worldwide distribution rights to this recording, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, awesome. Excellent. All right. And last name, Spann or Spawn?
Spann.
Spann.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to First 100K, the show where I interview successful entrepreneurs about how they made their first $100,000, digging deep to find the tools, tactics, and superpowers that you can use to go from A to 100K. I'm your host, your coach, your friend, Joseph Warren. I'm also the owner of 2 co-working spaces here in Tampa, Florida, where I have the honor and privilege of serving hundreds of small business clients, helping them start, launch, and grow their businesses. Today, our featured guest is courageous entrepreneur Donald Spann. Now, Donald Spann is the owner, founder, CEO of this wonderful company called Vicky Virtual. So that's vickyvirtual.com. And what Donald does is he provides a professional virtual receptionist service with highly trained, enthusiastic, US-based agents at a fraction of the cost of hiring a full-time in-house receptionist. I know this for a fact. I have 2 receptionists, Donald, that one that works at each of our co-working spaces. I spend $30,000 a year for each of their salaries.
Mm.
Instead, I can hire you, right? And I have for other services. So Donald, welcome to the show. Go ahead and fill in some of the gaps in that introduction I just made.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great introduction. I feel like a rock star a little bit. But yeah, I own Vicky Virtual. I'm also working on a project called Kara Virtual, which is Kara Virtual Assistant, Philippines-based. And I previously owned a cleaning company called Companion Maids, based in Chicago. Had a few other cleaning companies that were bought and sold. Before that, there was a software company named Rentobo, which was venture funded and eventually sold to a company called Gusto. So it's been a busy few years.
A busy few years. Got it. So let's get down right to it, right? Take a minute and share with our audience something personal about you that very few people in your business life know.
Well, the biggest thing is that to this day, it's really tough for me to envision being successful. It's not difficult for me to say, hey, I can shoot for and acquire and have this number of clients for this business, which as a consequence means a certain amount of profit in my bank account. But when I first set out to make $100,000, not just in revenue, but in profit, it's so hard. It's hard for me to even. It's surreal to this day that it's a fact, but it's not hard for me to say, "Hey, I have 150 clients or whatever." And so once I realized that and just sort of embraced it and focused on, okay, number of clients versus personal income, it made things easier.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think like there's a mindset shift there? Like what I'm hearing you say is when you focus on, okay, Donald, this means you're successful, and your brain actually rejects that thought. Like, no, you're not successful. Maybe you're still a failure. Maybe you'll never get there, right? That's like the voice in your head. And then if you just focus on, hey, once I get to X amount of clients, okay, I can do that. Like,
Well,
why do you think there's a shift?
well, it's a very long story for me. I growing up, I went to a very risky private school. If you look at tuition, it's in Chicago. If you look at tuition right now, I believe it's 38,000 a year per kid now. However, my family, we were middle class, we weren't rich, so I was on scholarship to go to this school, a partial scholarship financial aid. And so, I went to school with very affluent, wealthy people, the wealthiest people in Chicago, some billionaire families there. And so I was very close to and friends with people that just had a tremendous amount of wealth. And so I would see their lifestyles. And as you're growing up and you get older, you compare it to your own lifestyle. And it's like, man, this is such a huge jump. I don't know how this is going to happen. And but I want it, right? I want to be able to jump and move to the next level. But it's really hard to envision. I guess there's some people that can, but for myself, it was really hard to envision actually being able to eventually make the jump from being middle class, really, not poor, to being affluent.
I'm gonna jump in right there. So, Startup Nation, listen to what Donald's saying right now because I know you can relate to this. If you grew up in a middle class family, or more importantly, if you grew up in poverty, like I did, changing the mindset, transforming the mindset from a poverty mindset to an abundance mindset or a wealthy mindset can be so difficult. And Donald grew up in middle class and he struggles with that even to this day. When he has success, it's in his hand. Like, there's evidence, there's proof that, Donald, you're successful, right? You look down at the numbers and you go, okay. But there's this experience that's missing of, wow, I really feel successful, right? And that's something in the mind there. All right, let's transition for a second here.
Yeah.
Let's get down to business. Our audience loves context. How much revenue approximately did you bring in with Vicky Virtual in the past 12 months?
In the past 12 months, I haven't given this number out in ever. But in the past 12 months, we did roughly $750,000.
Fantastic. And what are you on track for in the next 12 months?
Well, our goal is over $1 million in revenue.
Awesome. And how many years into this company are you, Donald?
So as of January 1st, and today is the 3rd, as of January 1st, 2018, we are 3 years old.
Wow, so cool. So in 3 years, you're looking and going into the fourth year, you're looking at going from zero in revenue to $1 million company. Is that correct?
Yeah, I
That's
mean, 3.5 years. I would say on a month-to-month basis, pacing for $1 million.
that's so awesome. Congratulations. Really well done. Yeah. It sounds like you're getting past that mindset. Just just to clarify. All right, cool. Now here's the big, hairy, ugly question. Why do you think that 90% of entrepreneurs are struggling to make their first 100K? Sometimes a full year, sometimes 2 years, sometimes they're 4 years in and they're still struggling. Why do you think that is?
So the biggest thing is I would play it for many years by having this. I talked a bit about making a jump, and essentially all it is a jump. Every single company that I worked for in the past, I had a bunch of sales jobs and sales management jobs. And I was working for these companies. Sometimes they were very small, maybe 20 people. And it was very difficult to even show up to work. I hated being an employee. I'm thinking to myself, man, I could own this company. This is what could be done differently. But even though I felt, at least, I knew all the steps to potentially replicate the company I was working at, I thought there was some type of magic juice that I was missing that the owner had that just I didn't have yet. And one day I would stumble on a nugget. I was listening to all the gurus. My first couple projects were like information based. companies. I didn't have any revenue or anything, but I was just trying something. So really what changed my life was finally just buckling down and starting like a real company. And
Mm.
so actually going and becoming part of something, or if it was setting up an LLC and just taking action on that, right? Establishing an LLC. Um, and then just taking things one step at a time. And really it was a situation where before I realized that all of a sudden I had a company, right? So I did all of these things that weren't really associated with starting a real company. They were just associated with maybe doing an entrepreneurial project. Whereas once I actually sat down and started a real company, that's when things changed.
Love it. Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say right now, Donald, is when you sat down and you took action instead
Right.
of just ideas, right? And thinking, okay, here's what I'm going to do, or why is that guy superior to me? There must be something missing, right? I just don't have it. I got to keep coming up with concepts. I got to keep listening to gurus and new content and everything. And someday that will be me. And we
Yeah.
tend to live in someday for years, don't we?
Yeah.
And I
I would.
think the way out is to take consistent action towards the goal. What did you want to add there?
Yeah, I mean, just about a week ago, and I sent it to my sales rep and my supervisor with Vicky. There's still a YouTube video of me that's private of the first day I discovered internet marketing. And I was, in the video, I'm like, oh man, there's this really cool thing called SEO. And just really excited about it. I was talking about information overload, and I sort of said, I don't know what's going to happen in the next few years, but I'm going to figure this out. But seeing that back in 2009, it's just I could sort of revisit where I was in terms of my thought process. Uh, I remembered the feelings I had of I don't know how the heck this is going to happen, and it's just a crazy thing to look back on.
Man, I love it. Now, let me ask you this. I talk about superpower a lot on this show. What I mean by superpower is what's the one thing that only you can do in your business and everything else you should let go of. What is your superpower in your Vicky virtual business?
As far as myself, um, I'm good at putting things together. I grew up, I have a sort of a math quantitative brain. And so I just like putting things together. Early on, when I was really, really, really under a lot of fire to just try to get to my first $3,000 in profit a month, that was my first real goal. I was happy doing anything and everything. My bills didn't matter. I was going broke. I had debt piling up. I just paid rent and I ate. I had a $500 a month apartment that was originally $350 a month. It was crappy. Nothing else mattered except me just taking every single piece and putting it together, putting it together, putting it together. Now, when Vicky started, I had a partner, which I'm not sure if you knew, but he was really into marketing. So he did a lot of the content marketing. I was the one that put our site together, decided which phone system we were going to use. And he was actually a little scared of doing that part. So his job was to write and create buzz. My job was to put everything together. So once it was put together, we were off to the races.
That's cool. So I get that. So your superpower is building it, right? You're the
Yeah,
builder.
I'm the
And
builder.
you need someone else to do the marketing and get the word out and all that other stuff because that's not your superpower. Good news is that's someone else's superpower and you can hire or partner with that person, right? So that's fantastic. Describe
Right.
to us your biggest fail, your biggest mistake, or your biggest setback your first year in business.
Well, the first year a lot of people do this, but we tried to do almost everything. We've sort of nailed down the scope of the task and the types of things that we handle as a company under our service menu. So at one point, one good example of that is we were doing back end work. And, early on it was fine. Our first day when we launched, we had, I think, 7 clients. And at the end of month one, we had maybe 15 to 20 clients. And maybe 3 or 4 of them needed us to use back end. and they were all actually the same exact system. Well, by month 7 or 8, we had 25 to 30 different backend systems that we were managing for different clients. So, we got to the point where my partner and I were doing like YouTube videos, doing trainings on every single new system that we were integrating. And as an agent, taking calls for different companies the entire day and having 30 different back-end systems and navigating that well while on a call in your head is impossible. So people were ready to like go crazy. In October of that first year, after 10 months, we made the pretty important decision to get rid of back-end work, and it's really changed our business.
That's fantastic. So Startup Nation, what Donald is saying there is that he made the common mistake of taking on too much for his clients, right? Wanting to be everything to everyone.
Right.
And it's a recipe for disaster and just misery, I would say is the word, because we've done it too. And,
Right.
When you have that many different things you got to do and be responsible for, and it's daunting, it's overwhelming, and you cannot deliver excellence for a consistent amount of time when you're past your capacity. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, and I will add something there. Part of the reason why it got to this point, and I think this is, especially in your first couple of ventures, it is important to an extent to do maybe more than you want. And the reason for that is because when you're starting off, you want to just get as much revenue and clients as you can. And you might not know what is feasible to, what is feasible to service and what's not feasible. So we figured out what we could do and what we couldn't do, and then we scaled down after finding that out.
I think that's powerful that you just added that, right? So, Startup Nation put in place a time period, is what I'm hearing him say, is maybe it's 3 months. In 3 months, we're going to narrow down what products and services we offer our clients, right? And after 3 months, we need to get clear on that. And we need to cut things that aren't working, that are overwhelming, that are just bigger than what we are capable of. Get clear on that, what's working, and then move forward with that. So I
Yeah.
love it. Cool. Donald, what fear, we all have fear, what fear was holding you back your first year in business?
First year with Vicky Virtual specifically was just being good enough to match or surpass the quality of our competitors. Because with the other stuff we started, it was really simplistic, and it wasn't scary. But the idea for Vicky Virtual, I had a cleaning company, and my partner did it at the time as well. And we both got to the point around the same time where we needed call answering. I looked into our options. I didn't like any of them. So I said, well, maybe we could do this. So I spent literally a half hour, maybe an hour, sort of reverse engineering our competitors and what they probably did to set their companies up. And at that point, we realized, you know what, this might be possible. So I had one conversation with my former partner, Micah, and he was in. But long story short, there was the initial excitement in the first week or so. And then it was quickly replaced with fear. We kept working on it. We kept working on it while ignoring that fear. But it's just a very scary thing. And you don't know, or we didn't know until after about 3 or 4 months where we were answering literally every single call. We thought the company would collapse if we ever missed one call. I mean, I'm not kidding. We thought the company would collapse if we ever missed one call. But that fear sort of got us through those first few months because again, it made us really go above and beyond. But we were terrified.
I get that. Yeah. So you pushed for excellence because you thought if we miss one call, everyone's going to leave us and they're going to go to our competitors because our competitors don't miss calls.
Right. And there'll be 10 reviews online from one missed call.
Ooh, and then your reputation, everything, right? Boom, boom, boom. Got it. How many hours did you put in your first year in business per week?
The first year, the entire year wasn't the same. it started off around 40, 50. In between May and July, it was somewhere around 80 to 100, and we were going crazy. Um, and really, it was a good thing. We ended up taking on a lot of clients organically that we weren't actually to this day. I'm not sure if you know this, Joseph, but to this day, we haven't spent one penny on paid marketing for Vicky Virtual.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's about to change. But long story short, we were gaining a lot of organic clients. And so we didn't anticipate that. It was just a huge surge in growth. We got, I think it was an 80% client increase in June of 2015. So all of a sudden, we didn't have or anticipate the increase in call volume. So we didn't hire anyone. So it got to the point where my partner and I are taking calls. We didn't have time to look at resumes, let alone interview people, put them through a process, hire them, and train them. And again, we didn't want to ever miss one call. So, finally, we were about to kill ourselves, and we said, listen, okay, I'm just going to ignore certain calls. I'll be the last fall guy. My partner was the first backup. I was the last backup. And I finally just said, forget it, and got 2 people hired in like 2 or 3 weeks. And so once those people were hired, I scaled down to about, a paltry 60 hours a week.
Got it. Okay, so Startup Nation, again, you're going to hear this almost on every episode with every founder of successful businesses is they put in the hard work and they put in the long hours. And that's what year one looks like in a business. And if you think it doesn't, you're probably not going to last. And that's what it comes down to. So find a business that you love enough to put in the hard work. That doesn't mean you're going to love the hard work. There's a very clear distinction there, right? There's stuff like I do with this podcast, Donald, right? Like after you and I get off, I'm still doing some of my editing. I'm actually doing all my editing. I don't like doing editing of audio files and video files. It's so boring to me. It's the work. It's the hard work I got to put in now in order to build this sustainably. So what was the best business advice you ever received, Donald?
Oh, that is a difficult one. I will say there were 2 books that, 3 books. There were 3 books that were the only 3 books that actually changed my mindset, and I guess helped me grow in a business context. The first was Rich Dad Poor Dad. I read that when I was 15, 16 years old, and it just shattered everything. I was in such a bubble. It shattered everything. And I went from thinking I was going to just go straight to college, finish, and get a job and figure it out later in terms of businesses to, oh man, I don't know what I'm going to do at the college thing. And I actually ended up dropping out of college. So Rich Dad Poor Dad. Second book was 4-Hour Workweek. That book was unreal in terms of realizing what it's like to pursue the other direction, which is lifestyle entrepreneurship, right? So there's the Gary V's of the world that will go 100 hours a week for the rest of their lives. I'm not like that. This past year, I slowed down a lot. My average week this past year was maybe 25, 30 hours. But, you had to establish ourselves to get to that point. And we had to create a lot of automation, a lot of processes, and really just make sure everything was ironclad before we did that. So I don't want to take away the importance of that. So 4-Hour Workweek. And then the third was Our World, or The World in 2050. I can't remember the author of that book, but essentially that it was written by a climate scientist, talking really mostly in the context of what our climate's going to look like in the year 2050 and what our world will look like as a result of that, politically, economically, socially. And so it was such an eye-opening read. It wasn't very biased at all. And it really gave me a lot of context to emerging technologies and where our world is headed, which if you take advantage of those things, it allows for some great business opportunities.
Love it. And you know, the 4 hour work week, Tim Ferriss talks so much about hiring virtual assistants to do the work, right? And you own a virtual assistant company, right?
Right.
Kara Virtual, right? So, Startup Nation, if you want that 4 hour work week, and you love that book, you know, Donald's that guy that can provide those services for you to achieve that. Donald, share one of your daily habits that has helped you to get to where you are today.
So, and I'll be honest. I used to have a lot more processes personally that I adhere to. Over the last year, that's really fallen apart. In the last 2 months, I've recommitted to having habits. And so one of those habits is simply writing things down. I've always written down certain ideas and little nuggets of information I will get. But my best approach personally for being productive was to have a list that needed to be done, just have it up on one page. I have it on my MacBook in the notes, that like little notes app built into a MacBook. And I just have an ongoing task list, and I literally work through it one by one. If the next task is annoying, who cares? Work through it one by one, get it done. So rather than, and there's different approaches for everyone. But for me, it wasn't a matter of prioritizing, which task sexier. Just usually the unsexiest stuff is the stuff that had to get done first. So I'll write it down and get it done.
Now, let me ask you this, right? Because there's arguments on both sides of the fence with that as
Mhm.
far as prioritizing your tasks. And many of the experts say prioritize at the top the three different tasks for the day that lead to profit, right?
Mhm.
That lead to revenue. And then everything else is secondary. Do you agree with that or do you challenge that?
I agree with that. And the reality is that I don't put my entire laundry list on that task list, right? Because you never run out of things to do. But if it ends up on the task list, by default, it's pretty high priority.
Okay, I get that. That clears that up. Share with us one of your favorite website. What is your favorite website, app, or digital resource, and why?
Reddit. Reddit is it's just, I mean, Reddit is the entire internet, right? If you're unfamiliar with Reddit, if some of your listeners are, for whatever reason, unfamiliar with Reddit, it is a forum that enables any user to submit a link of any article. They can submit a picture or a text post. And so through those three different ways of posting, I think it's 6% of the entire US is on Reddit. And so the system of not just posting, but also upvoting and downvoting enables interesting content to be crowdsourced to the front page. And so rather than a news source like HuffPost or WashPost or whatever, sort of curating what they think is the most interesting stuff and then, trying to hit viral audiences, Reddit only will have things hit the front page that are viral. And so because it's viral, it is actually interesting. The crowd, the audience has already determined it to be interesting. So if you go to the front page of Reddit, I'm seeing impactful things. And I follow the entrepreneurship subreddit. I follow news and all, funny stuff. And so I would stumble across all kinds of things that led to great discoveries. The reason I started a cleaning business was because I stumbled on a post on Reddit. And that cleaning company also did six figures its first year. And so Reddit has just been a tremendous resource.
Got it. I think that was one of the best breakdowns of Reddit that I've heard. So really well done on that. And final question in this round, if you will, of our show. What's the one thing that you want Startup Nation, our listeners, to really get, to really know about being successful in business?
So really it just comes down to everyone has a different approach. And you need to find what your approach is and then commit to it and take action. I mean, the reason why so many people that are successful say the same thing over and over again is because it's true. Eliminate the the haze of magic about needing some type of nugget to, take that next step forward and just do something. It's better to fail fantastically than it is to sit around and look for the thing that will stop you from failure.
Love it. So take action, Startup Nation. Take action. Donald, my favorite part of the show, welcome to the hustle round. This is where I ask you 12 quick fire questions, and you'll have about 3 seconds to answer each. Don't overthink it. First thing that comes to you. Are you ready?
Wow, I was not ready for this, and I'm ready now.
What is your favorite sound?
Music.
What is your least favorite sound?
Farting.
When you were a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Shaft.
Got it. What are you most afraid of?
Spiders.
What did you spend way too much time doing your first year in business?
Analyzing.
What secret fear do you have about people?
That that they're not telling the truth, being honest.
Got it. What do you wish you had learned sooner in your business?
To focus on what I'm good at.
Mm-hmm. What is a new habit you want to form?
Consistency.
What is a bad habit you want to break?
Inconsistency.
that was too easy. Pick 3 words to describe who you are now.
Renewed, determined, happy.
Pick 3 words to describe who you were your first year in business.
Hungry, determined, hopeful.
Got it. Imagine sometime in the distant future, and there you are standing in front of your tombstone. Read to us what it says on it.
He made an impact on his family and on the world.
Awesome. And last question. If you could come back to life after you died and tell your family and friends only one piece of advice, what would you say to them?
Well, it sort of depends on what I died. But
say you died tomorrow, not to say that you are.
Okay. If I died tomorrow, I would say...
What's the one piece of advice you would say to them?
Advice. Enjoy your life. I believe you're only here once. So I would recommend that you don't rest in the comfort of mediocrity and go for what you actually want to do. It doesn't have to be business, but pursue what you really want to do. Everyone dies regardless.
Everyone dies regardless, Startup Nation. Start working. Start taking action. Donald, what's the best way for our listeners to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I do have a website, donaldspann.com. That's Donald, SPANN.com. And Kara Virtual was mentioned a few times. You can reach and find out more information about that. Kara helps, HELPS.com. And then finally, Vicky Virtual, which is VICKYVIRTUAL.com.
Gotcha. And you told me before we got on, you had a special offer for our listeners of Startup Nation with Vicky Virtual. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I'm really excited to offer your listeners not only, and I decided to be generous because Joseph is such a cool guy. So normally there's a sign-up fee of $50. We waive that. And in addition, I've never offered this. We're offering 6 months off our services at a 10% discount. So 6 full months of our service, 10% off, plus a $50 waive sign-up fee.
That's fantastic. And take 10 seconds and share what is the biggest benefit. How do our listeners benefit from using your service?
So once you get past the very start of your company sometimes, you're going to want to start to leverage yourself as quickly as possible. Vicky Virtual offers a easy, inexpensive way to begin to leverage your business and focus on growth.
Got it. So, Startup Nation, listen to what Donald's saying. If you're anywhere in the world, especially if you're a U.S. client, you're going to go to vickyvirtual.com/first 100K to get that special discounted offer that Donald is offering you very generously. That he's waiving the $50 sign-up fee, and he's giving you 10% off for the first 6 months of using his service. He's never offered that before. That is special just to you as listeners of First 100K. That's fantastic. And then if you are outside of the U.S. and you need a virtual assistant, or you're inside the U.S. and need a virtual assistant, you can go to CaraHelps.com and use Donald's virtual assistant services right there and kind of start building your 4-hour work week, right? And that's exciting.
Nice.
Donald, awesome job. Thanks for joining us today, and I wish you peace, love, and superpowers.
Thank you, and likewise.
Cheers. Startup Nation, want to grow your business faster than you ever imagined? Head over to first100k.com for even more tools, tactics, and tricks that you can use to go from A to 100K. I'm Joseph Warren, and you were made for greatness. So stop being a wuss and start being a winner. Have a blessed day, and I'll catch you on the next show. Cheers.
Energy is good, and I felt like, it's a nice casual conversation.
And that's the way it's meant to be, right? And this way it lets out your true self. I think you did. I think this is something you're going to want to share with your clients. They really get to know you, right? Who's the founder of the company that they pay revenue to every single month, and I'll tell you, just speaking with you today, I got to know, like, and trust you a little more. So that's pretty cool. And so I'm going to ask 3 bold requests from you. Mm-hmm. The first request is, after this interview, please record a quick video testimonial about your experience on First 100K with Joseph Warren, and why you think it's beneficial for entrepreneurs to listen to this, especially their first year in business.
All right.
And then just email me that video. I think it'd be like 60 seconds, a minute and a half, whatever. Mm-hmm. And just be real. Just bring you.
Why someone should listen and how it could be beneficial to them?
Yeah, well, that's the one and the same thing, right? So how entrepreneurs, first year entrepreneurs would benefit from listening to the show. And what was your experience on the show, right? As a guest. Mm-hmm. Yeah, your experience personally, with Joseph Warren. And it could be like, you know what? I didn't like Joseph. He's an a-hole, and that's fine. You could say that. As long as you say real and you're authentic. That's what I care about. And then that's the first request. The second request is shoot over to iTunes and write a quick review.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can share pretty much the same thing you're including in the video.
Okay, no problem.
That'd be awesome. Because
I'm already a subscriber, so.
Oh, fantastic, bro. Yo, have you heard the Larry Wingett episode?
Oh, I haven't listened yet.
Oh, listen to the Larry Wingett one. It was 2 episodes ago. Dude, he's like, he's a top speaker. He's a 6-time Wall Street best-selling author. He's on CNN. He's like the guy people turn to, the media turns to get real in-your-face business advice. And you'll love this guy. He just says it how it is unapologetically. He's fantastic. So he's now become a friend of mine. He opened up his circle of his 5 closest colleagues. And I've had them on the show, which is really cool. And that's
real cool.
Yeah. So that's my third request. Who in your circle of influencers, either at your level or above you, but they're in your circle, who do you think would make a good guest on the show? And you can make a quick email introduction.
Yeah, actually, I mean, there's definitely a lot of people that would.
Mm-hmm. So like what Larry Wingett did for me, and I realize he didn't have to do it because he's at that level of success. and time is so valuable. And he's like, he had so much fun on the show and he loved the questions and the content. And he's like, absolutely, I'll do it. Did a video testimonial, right? He did exactly what I'm asking of you. And then he just did a quick email and copied 5 of his closest friends. And he said, hey, boys, you need to be on the show. I was just on the show. Here's why you need to be on the show. And they were just like, oh, if Larry says yes, I'm in. And it was that easy, right? And there's going to be people like that. So if you'd be willing to, is that something you'd be willing to take on?
Yeah, I could do it. I mean, it's really not that get it done in 20 minutes.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And I will let you know when your show comes out. They get put in the pipeline, and we have a bunch in the pipeline right now. And then I would ask, again, send this to your client list, because this is a huge value, because many of them may still be in their first 100K or just crossing that line, right? And they're having all these struggles. And what you shared, not only will they get to know you more and then refer more business to you, but they're also going to benefit, I think, from a lot of the wisdom that you dropped today on the show. So well done.
Thanks. Yeah, I have a podcast too. I've done 5 episodes so far.
What's the podcast?
Well,
Why didn't I know?
Well, like I said, consistency, right?
Yeah.
So I've recorded 8 episodes and there's 4 posted. It's called the Worst Deal Ever podcast, and
it's a great name.
Yeah, I love it. The premise of it is successful entrepreneurs go in depth about the worst deal they've ever been a part of. So they talk about, what happened, why they failed, and, eventually what they learned from the failure. So we just explore, we just try to go as in depth as possible. And I think it's a pretty good angle on their stories.
When was the last time you posted an episode?
A month ago.
Got it. And how often did you promise your audience they would get a show?
Every week.
Got it. So what are you going to recommit to, my friend?
So the thing is, I'm not quite sure if I want to consistently continue the podcast.
Got it.
But I love the concept, but I just don't know if I'll be able to get it done. One thing that I actually just learned a couple tips from you just now, from what you're asking me, in terms of being able to gather ideas for other guests.
Mm-hmm.
Because my problem was, pretty much everyone I asked was interested, but it was hard to get them scheduled.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I didn't really realize or think about is that you could just record 3 or 4 interviews in the same day.
Yes, it's called batching. Yeah, so like some of the top podcasters in the world I learned from, like John Lee Dumas with Entrepreneur on Fire. His podcast, one of the top out there. And what he does is he does a daily show for the past 4 years. No, he's 4 years in. So he's up to just under 2,000 episodes. Okay, so he's 1,900 episodes. He's never missed a day.
Wow.
Now he's ex-Army guy, so he's all about discipline and structure and everything. So you probably could relate a lot with some of that. And what he does, he now has it where because he would do 1 a day, right? Did the recording, interview, and then post it, and it's a pain in the ass. And then he started to build an audience. He said about 10 months to 12 months in, it started to hockey stick, right? And organically start to grow. But before that, it's just 10 months of consistent hard work, right? But his point was this: he now batches his show. So 2 days per month, he does 30-minute interviews back to back per day. So he'll do an 8-hour day, 15 minutes. They're all scheduled with a 5-minute break in between. And he'll work the whole day on a Monday and bang out 15. And then he sends it to his virtual assistant. They do all the work of getting it up. And then the second day, he does another 15. And he has 30 episodes done, uploaded in the pipeline for the whole month, and he's done.
That's smart.
Yeah,
my assistant.
Batching.
I actually had my assistant edit my last 2 episodes.
Got it. Yeah. So you may want to just hire one of your Cura virtual people. And I would say this is, if you don't have any of them that specialize in podcast editing, that may be something you want to look at because there's a whole market base that's coming into play right there. And podcasting is growing, right? So there's people like me, and I'm about to offload some of that work. I don't know where to go, who's the right virtual assistant or anything like that, but that's something I'm looking to do. Because it becomes a lot, right? And I'm doing 2 shows, weekly shows. So I'm doing all the work right now.
Right.
So that's what I would say is batch it. That's what I've been able to do, and it helps tremendously. So I'll do like 2 or 3 in a day, and then I'm good for 3 weeks, right? And I'll just painfully go through a day of editing or whatever. But it's still not. It's not like John Lee Dumas. And eventually, once the budget and you monetize it, then you could pay for all that, and then it's easy.
Right. Yeah. Then at that point, you just find people to interview and interview them.
Yeah, and then I would say your other best friend is Calendly, like calendar, .com. And all I do is when I get a referral, like you're going to do an email introduction to 5 people or whatever, and then I just send them a link. Pick a day and time on my calendar. Here's the link. Right. And they self-book. I don't have to deal with, because I was going back and forth scheduling via email. Oh, what a headache. Right. Now they pick a day and time that works for them. I get the notification and I know what's in my calendar for tomorrow.
Right, yeah. I'm familiar with Calendly because a lot of our clients use it.
Yeah. So that's what I would say. Those 2 things would help you a lot, batching and pre-scheduling.
Okay.
And then it takes out a lot of the nasty work that's holding you back right now from being consistent.
Yeah. So I'll definitely incorporate that. I just need to make a decision as to whether or not I'm actually going to do it. I just sort of did the podcast on a whim. So, if I make the decision, I told myself that if I make the decision to actually pursue it, I will be consistent with it.
Let me ask you a question. I just read this yesterday, and it really challenged me off of this men's blog or whatever. They spoke about the distinction between doing work that you hate, but when you're done, you feel amazing about it. You're like, yes, that's like, boom. So the reward is after you do the work. And then the fallacy is do work that you love. And for the reward, right? And after you love the results or whatever. And they're like, that's made up. Like work is work. Like you're not supposed to find this passion when you love doing the work part of it, right? There is no any of that. It's like the work's going to be ugly. So do you love doing the actual work? But then when you're done, it leaves you kind of empty and it's like, yeah, I did that, whatever. Or do you hate doing the work? And then when you're done with the podcast, you're like, that was awesome. I did the show. That was fantastic.
Each of the episodes I've done, I was really happy when we finished it. I like talking about entrepreneurship and hearing people's stories. So it's in that sense, it's really cool. Really, I'll be completely honest. The little thing that has stopped me is because my VA has started to do the editing now, and I'm just doing audio. So she covered that, but she doesn't know how to post it yet. And the thing that what I do is I record the episode, and then I add the intro later, and then I will put in the the audio intro track and then the outro track.
Right.
So
that's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. Right. So just that little part. But, if I have an interview scheduled, I always do the interview. So I guess, just making sure that I have interviews lined up will force me to get the rest done.
That's exactly it. Because you sound similar to me is you don't like breaking promises to people.
Right.
Doing the work, you could easily cheat yourself on and be like, I don't have to. But if someone's expecting you at a certain day and time, you're going to do it no matter what. So that's how you set yourself up to win, is schedule interviews that you're now committed to. and
Right.
then figure out how to do the rest.
And then in terms of the audience, I don't really have, and although it's funny, all these people I run into, my friends are like, dude, I listen to your podcast. It's freaking awesome. I'm like, wow, really? But yeah, so I don't have a large audience yet. There's no way I would allow myself to let down, say, 500 or 1,000 listeners versus, the dozen of my friends that pay attention right now.
Yeah, for sure, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And then you also going to associate that with your brand, right? So the
Right.
Vicky Virtual founder has a podcast. Dude, that's going to do wonders for your business. You're going to land new clients from your listener base.
Right.
Like this is something you may want to, and again, we don't get
That's why.
motivated by desire. We get motivated by pain, right? So like what is missing in your life right now by you not doing this?
Right. Yeah. And that was the reason I started. It was like, listen, this would be an incredible eventual traffic source for Vicky.
Yeah, and you spoke to me. The one piece of guiding advice you would tell your family and friends when you return back from life is get out of the freaking mediocrity comfort, right?
Yeah.
And just face it. Just face it head on. So, you just coached yourself on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's great. And this is what I want to say to you. Freepodcastcourse.com. Is John Lee Dumas's free podcasting course. I think it's freepodcastingcourse.com. And you can just Google it and we'll come up. It's totally free. And what I would recommend based on what you said is tell your virtual assistant to sign up for it. And it's a video tutorial free of charge and tell her to learn how to do it. Right? Say, it's like, here's your homework. I want you to learn how to do this because it will talk about iTunes and how to get it up and all that stuff. It doesn't go deep into technical stuff, but it's enough for her to become dangerous at it. It's all I use to learn this. Tells you the equipment, all that stuff. I
am on iTunes, by the way.
Yeah, I get it. And you mentioned the outro intro. That's the little thing that's been stopping you. I want to add value to you. That's why I'm still talking right now because you're going to do those three things for me. So I want to add value. The intro, outro. I've been doing that. Like I said, I do it on my other podcast, Broken Catholic, and it's a pain in the neck. It's extra steps in the editing process. And it just makes me not want to do the editing even more. Mm-hmm. What I found with first 100K is you saw I recorded the intro and outro as part of the same sound file. I now literally just read it. So it's just one file. I cut the front and I cut the back. I'm done. And I just add the music on the front end and back end. That saves me an extra 5 minutes every single episode, and it makes it less daunting. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the same thing for my other podcasts. I'm going to stop doing the intro as separate things that I put in, the intro and outro, and I'm just making it part of the interview.
Yeah. I noticed that it seemed like you did that just now. No, my intro previously were in part based off of the conversation. Mm-hmm. So I would say, well, in this conversation we talked about that, but I can eliminate that. That's not a big deal.
That's what the other podcasters do, right? And the experts do it. And there's a part of me that says, I get it, but man, that's a lot of extra work.
Yeah.
And it's part of what would keep me from doing this. So I want to create this in a way that I also enjoy doing it. And I don't think it's super necessary. I do see the benefit though of like, on today's podcast, we're going to learn about this, this, and this, and here's how you'll benefit. To me, it's also good because I've heard other podcasts where they just get right into the content and it's just fast, hard hitting. And that's enough. Like if you're interesting in the first 2 minutes, it's like they're going to keep listening.
I mean, the reality is that if I'm pumping on an episode every week and it's interesting, however which way I can get it up, that's the most important part.
That's what she said. Exactly, bro. Sometimes it's just showing up, man. That's it. Anything else I can help you with that comes to
No, I guess, not to take all your time, but what was Okay, so I have to admit, I am. I don't believe anymore. I'm an atheist. So I was interested to see what your Catholic, what your podcast is like, the Broken Catholic.
Got it. What's your question? Do you have a question?
So yeah, just wondering like what I haven't looked much into it. So what's the premise of the
Oh,
podcast?
yeah. So it's kind of fun and cool. And I do it different. It's not your Catholic type of podcast for any way, shape, or form. Because like I listened to all these other Catholic podcasts, and I was like, these are so freaking boring and so like archaic. And the problem is part of the name is the Catholic Church is broken in its delivery of truth. It has truth. It's right, but the way it delivers it is not relevant. It's like people don't connect with it, and millennials are leaving the Catholic Church. 80% of Catholic youth leave the church by age 23.
Really?
80%. That's a whole future generation. So you could see that's not working. So what I talk about, the show, the premise is I interview Catholics, Protestants, atheists, and agnostics about why the world isn't working right now. Because we all get that. That's the commonality. There's hatred, there's divisiveness, right? It's not working. We want to create a world that works. So how do we do it? And I believe the way we do that is that we talk about the embarrassing, the humiliating topics that we all struggle with, but nobody wants to admit, and remove the labels, right? So there's no Catholic, atheist, black, white. Remove all the labels. This is why the world isn't working. The second you say a label, oh, you're Republican, boom, conversation stops.
Right.
Small mindedness, right? Everything stops. And it's like, remove the labels. Let's talk about what's not working. Let's talk about how to create a world that works. And I believe that's what can help. And it's awesome. So I've had atheists on, I've had agnostics, I've had Catholics, I've had Protestant brothers, and that's what we talk about. And yeah, God's part of that conversation. And I think when it's delivered in that kind of messaging, um, people get that they were created for something more. It's just in us. We all know it. We in entrepreneurship we call it greatness, right? You're made for greatness. That's part of my thing. Uh, we all have this desire that we're not an accident, that this world didn't just happen. Like that'd be like saying the smartphone here accidentally came into being after billions of years and took this form and the shape. And then, oh, by the way, when you turn it on, it has a smart computer built in with intelligence. Where did that come from? Anyone who's logical using their brain would say, oh, someone designed that. It came from a designer. Well, okay, now look at the world around you and the beauty, the order, the structure. If 1 degree is moved, the entire universe implodes, right? Scientifically, it's proven. The evidence is there. How does that happen accidentally through random chaos? Show me one example in human understanding of how total massive chaos turns into perfect order consistently for thousands of years, flawlessly. With 1 degree variance, it all falls apart. It's not logical to think that this is all an accident. We have to defy logic to even have that conversation. So I believe we're created, right? And we're designed, and reasonable people get that. Now, here's the thing. To face that there is a God means we have to face our lifestyle choices now. And that may mean we have to change certain things in our lifestyle. Okay, because if there's a God now, oh, historically we have, God and things that have been passed down. And we're like, okay, there's a certain way of being and acting and living that is God-centered rather than self-centered. Oh, that means I have to change certain things, and that makes us very uncomfortable. That's the first part. And this is coming from a lot of my friends who are atheists, agnostics, Protestants, and just really hearing where people are at. The one thing we all have in common is we all have a hunger inside of us for our God. There's something that draws us to look up. There's just something, like something's bigger than us. Like even if we're building a business, where does that need for expansion come from?
Mhm.
It's there. It's already there. And I think we all have a God-sized hole in our heart that can only be accessed with his fingerprint, kind of like a door access. And
Mhm.
until we um, answer that, I had a friend of mine, she's agnostic, and she goes, Joseph, I believe there's something bigger. But, God, organized religion, hell no. And I was like, I got it. I was like, do you want to believe that there's a God? And she's like, absolutely. And I was like, why? She's like, because it makes the world make sense. And the world doesn't make sense if there was no God. And I was like, okay, got it. So do you really want to know? And she's like, yeah. Like, do you want to know for certain if there's a God? Absolutely, I do. I said, great. So tonight or whenever, when you get to quiet time, just on your own, look up to the sky and say, God, if you're real, show me that you're real in my life. I want to believe. And if you say that with a sincere and authentic heart, and then watch, he will show up in your life in a way that you get. And she's like, stay quiet. She didn't commit. She didn't say anything, right? Um, and then a few weeks later, she told me, she's like, by the way, I said that prayer. I was like, what? She's like, yeah. I said, God, if you're real, show me you're real. And I was like, okay. And she goes, yeah. Then I was at this like event for my college, and there's all these chatty, gossipy girls, and I hate that. So like, I just want to get away from them. So I
Mhm.
went, and there was like this like church um, on the campus grounds where we were at, where we were visiting, and there was like a chapel, and it was quiet. And I just went in there and I just sat down. And she said, all of a sudden, I just felt this overwhelming like love, like she's like, I can't even describe it. It was just like I
Like a wave
experienced.
of energy.
Yeah, she's like, I had never felt that before, and in a moment, I knew God was real. Like you could, it wasn't. And she's very academic, she's pursuing her PhD, and that's why she's like, I have to get it here first before I could get it here. Turns out that's not accurate. In a moment, she got it here. That's
Mhm.
what's missing. And when she got it here, the brain, yeah, it's still wrestling with some stuff, but she's like, I just know God's real. And she's like, now I have a relationship with God and I talk to him, and and it just changed everything in my life. And she's not Christian. She doesn't buy into any of the organized religion or anything like that. But what a great step she took. So I'd leave you with that. Does that help in any way? I don't know if it
Yeah, I
does.
mean, I always think it's interesting to hear different perspectives on this. Um, you know.
Yeah, got it. So I would say this, just so you know, I was raised Catholic, and
Mhm.
then at 19 years old, started a business and moved away. And I wanted nothing to do with my family. I wanted nothing to do with Catholicism or Christianity or God. And I
Mhm.
abandoned him and became atheist for many years. And I partied hard like a rock star, and I got into some really darkness. And it was literally on 2 to 3 occasions where I was almost murdered that God spared my life. It was undeniable. I should not have walked away. There was no reason why I walked away, literally no reason. Like I
Mhm.
caused my own demise. And I was spared, and I really don't even remember the details of how I got out of both situations. Like it's just an odd thing.
Mhm.
And ever since then, God had been just tapping on my heart, like, come back to me, come back to me. And I just kept ignoring. And I won't go into the whole story.
Mhm.
But I experienced 3 years ago, I experienced God, a relationship with him in a real way, no more, no less real than you and I speaking right now. And I will say this to any human being: until you experience God, you'll never fully believe in him, that he
Mhm.
exists. You have to experience, because experience is undeniable. It's your story, and no
Right.
one can argue with your story. So
Right.
if you haven't experienced God, that's all that's missing. And if you want to, you just have to ask with a sincere heart, God, if you're real, let me experience you in my life. Show me you're real. And the second you're able to face that and do that, watch out, because he'll transform your life in a powerful way, bro. And you may not realize what's missing right now in your life, or maybe you do, I don't know,
Mhm.
but you will after. And you'll look back and go, how did I even exist before that?
Mhm.
So I would say that's the only thing that's missing is you to experience it, um, and him, right? So
Yeah, that's a good approach. That's a good approach. I've heard different variations of this conversation, but I really like that approach because that's something that is a reasonable. It's reasonable.
yeah,
It's not the assumption that I'm an idiot for whatever reason. um, that's reasonable. I like it. Um, Final question: how
sure.
old are you?
Just turned 41.
41. I'm 33.
Wow, you're at the perfect age, bro.
You're at the perfect age.
Why do you say that?
I have no idea.
Got it. Yeah, it's I believe stay young, right? It's
But
I occur to most people much younger than I am by 10 years at least. And normally when I say 41, they're very taken back. And it's because I show up a certain way, man. It's like I'm still a boy, dude. Like and I still have like the bad boy tendencies and all those things. So hence the name of the podcast, Broken Catholic. That's me. Like I'm
mhm.
broken, bro. I'm human. I'm flawed. I sin. I mess up. I wrestle. Like my vice, beautiful, tall women, like straight up, and gets me into trouble every single time. And I still wrestle with it, right?
Mhm.
And by no
I've had
means,
that issue.
what's that?
I've had that issue.
Yeah, exactly, man. So, when I bring this up on the show, it's like, I'm not perfect, man. It's like, I face my ugly. And that's
Mhm.
what it's about. Face your ugly. It's the same way you do it in business. Do it in your personal life. And sometimes we use our business to distract us from actually handling our personal life.
Good.
And to me, that's a big mistake that has future consequences, like you had brought up earlier.
Good.
So don't ignore you, bro, because you are at the center of everything you do. And if there's something missing here in you, there'll be something missing that you carry into every area of your life.
Hmm. Okay. Um,
Yeah,
now that I think about it,
sure.
maybe you should be on my podcast at some point.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Invite me. In order to invite me, you got to get started, right?
Yeah. Yeah. True story. I might. I think I'm gonna steal your Calendly advice because that's the whole scheduling thing is a big issue.
It's a bugger, dude.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, scale it. Just scale it. Then it's not a problem.
Right.
And yeah, offload that to your virtual assistant. Be like, send out the emails and I just copy and paste, my email content to each person with the
Oh,
link.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And it
Okay.
literally takes me 5 minutes to book 5 people.
Okay. I
Cool.
apologize. I gotta go.
I gotta run. All right, bro. Great job. Look forward to the video. Just email that to me. The iTunes review, and
Mhm.
then email introduction to a
Oh,
few influencers that you know. Okay,
okay.
and
And,
reach
and
out to me.
also,
Yeah,
I'll
reach
also
out.
get that landing page up for you ASAP.
Yes. Yeah. Got it. Awesome. Well done. Great job. Talk to you soon. God bless.
Bye.
Peace.